what he really feels and thinks after being intimate with you. Let me shock you. It's not what you believe. It's not about whether the moment was good or bad. It's about something deeper that decides if he sees you as a woman he values or someone he leaves. See, most people think the way he acts afterward is random. It isn't. It's the biggest clue to how he views you and himself in this connection. Here's what happens. For you, intimacy can feel like a bridge. You cross it and feel closer. For him, it can feel like a mirror. It reflects his true intentions and feelings. That's why some men lean in after, while others suddenly need space. And here's the twist. Needing space doesn't always mean he's pulling away. Often, it means he's processing. But if his actions show coldness, avoidance, or dismissiveness, that's not about you, it's about how he values the bond. If this is connecting with you, keep watching, because once you understand what he's really thinking afterward, you'll never misread his signals again. Look, my dear listener, I have been giving consultations for over 30 years, and today I want to confess something to you that might truly shake you. There is a hidden truth that men almost never talk about, something that reveals what really happens in their minds right after the act. What I am about to tell you will finally break down that romantic idea we have been taught to believe about the moments afterwards. And no, it is not what Hollywood has shown you, nor is it what your closest friend might assume. Science gives us very clear answers that can completely shift how you see male intimacy. But before I reveal this secret, which I promise will surprise you, I ask a favor. Write down in the comments if you have ever wondered what truly goes on inside a man's mind right after sex. I am almost sure you have. And I am also sure that the answers you came up with were not correct. Let's begin by breaking down a common illusion that women often carry. We believe that after intimacy, men lie beside us thinking deeply about us, as if we were the main character in a romantic film, wondering if we are the one or if they now feel a deep soul connection. But honestly, that is just our female projection working loudly. A man's brain functions very differently in those post-intimate moments. And understanding this is not meant to hurt you, but to help you make wiser decisions. Do you know what actually happens in a man's brain right after orgasm? His prolactin level shoots up to almost 5 times higher than normal. Prolactin is the hormone that creates the feeling of being fully satisfied, similar to the way you feel after a huge holiday meal when all you want is to rest on the couch. That is the reason many men quickly fall asleep or appear mentally absent. It is not personal, it is biology. But now it gets even more interesting. This is where we begin to see what is really happening in his inner world. While his body relaxes, his subconscious starts doing something fascinating. It begins to judge whether the experience created what I call emotional value markers. And here is exactly where many women make huge mistakes. I remember Patricia, a 48-year-old client who came to me completely heartbroken because her partner pulled away after 6 months of dating. After their first night together, she told me in tears, "Doctor, I thought after that night we would be closer. It was so beautiful. He said such lovely things to me. And since then, he has been distant." I explained something to her that completely changed how she looked at relationships. Men do not process intimacy as a romantic love event like we often do. Their primitive brain, that old part designed for survival, makes an unconscious judgment. Does this woman represent a challenge, or has she already been fully won? Was this moment valuable, or was it too easy to reach? I'm not justifying this thinking. I'm simply explaining how it works so you can navigate it wisely. And here comes the first uncomfortable truth. If a man feels he has gotten you too easily, his unconscious interest can decrease. Not because you are less worthy, but because his evolutionary design makes him value more what requires effort. It feels unfair, it feels primitive, but it is reality, and ignoring it changes nothing. But before you think I'm telling you to play hard to get, stop right there. That is not the point. The real key is to understand that your worth does not depend on the timing of intimacy, but on how you show up emotionally before, during, and especially after. So what does this mean in real life? It means that after sex, you need to show emotional wholeness, not emotional need. If you immediately search for reassurance, ask, "How was it for you?" cling tightly, or begin projecting hopes about the future, you trigger a warning in that primitive part of his brain that reads it as dependency. Let me tell you about Marisol, another client whose love life transformed once she understood this. After intimacy, instead of lying there waiting for loving declarations, she would get up, take a shower, and go about her life naturally. Weeks later, she told me, "Doctor, it feels strange. Since I stopped asking for his validation, he has been more affectionate and attentive." Why did this happen? Because she displayed something the male brain strongly respects: emotional independence. When a woman remains emotionally steady after intimacy, not clingy or needy, it creates respect. His subconscious thinks, "This woman does not need me to feel whole. She is with me because she chooses to be, not because she depends on me." But let me warn you, do not confuse independence with coldness. The line between them is subtle but very important. An emotionally independent woman can still be warm, caring, and affectionate, but she is not needy. She can enjoy the moment without grabbing onto it as if it were the proof of her value. And here is something that many women miss. Men do process intimacy emotionally, but in a very different way and with a delay. While we reflect right away and express our feelings, they need time and space for emotions to develop. In the hours right after intimacy, their brain is actually in recovery mode. The dopamine levels that were so high during arousal drop quickly, which often creates a temporary feeling of emptiness or distance. That does not mean he felt nothing. It simply means his system is resetting. And here's an incredible fact most people do not know. Around 12 to 24 hours after intimacy, the male brain actually begins to process the emotions and connections from the experience. It is during this stage that he feels the depth of it more strongly. That is why you may notice he often appears more caring or connected the next day. But for this emotional process to grow in a positive way, you need to plant the right seeds right after the moment. And those seeds are not emotional demands or requests for declarations, but signs of your own value and completeness. Let me give you a small mental exercise that can shift your entire experience. Before you choose to be intimate with someone, ask yourself honestly, am I doing this because I truly want to, or because I need approval, closeness, or proof that I matter? If your answer involves hidden needs, pause. Intimacy should never be used as a quick fix for inner emptiness. I remember Carmen, 52, who came to me because every man she dated pulled away after sex. As we worked together, we discovered that she was using intimacy as a shortcut to force emotional closeness. Deep down, she did not believe she was interesting or valuable enough to keep a man's attention without it. Her pattern was always the same. Quick intimacy plus emotional dependence equaled his withdrawal. I explained to her something that shifted her life. Carmen, if you love from neediness, you give off neediness. But if you love from true desire and inner wholeness, you give off value. It took her months to really make it her own. But in time, she learned to wait before becoming intimate, until she was certain her reasons were genuine and not just a desperate attempt to feel close. Now, let's look deeper into what actually goes on in the male mind in the hours that follow. Beyond the physical recovery, there is also a quiet evaluation taking place that decides whether this experience pulls him closer to you or creates distance. And my dear friend, that depends much more on your attitude than on what happened in bed. Men unconsciously weigh three main things after an intimate moment. The first is whether you keep your true self after sex. If before you were confident, independent, and complete, and afterward you suddenly become needy or act different, alarms go off in his mind. The second is whether you avoid using intimacy as emotional currency. This means you do not assume he now owes you commitment, love, or a new level of relationship. The third is whether you keep your own emotional center. What does that mean? It means your happiness, your peace, and your sense of worth do not depend on his behavior after sex. If he falls asleep, fine. If he checks his phone, fine as well. If he wants to cuddle, great. If not, you do not take it as rejection. Modern neuroscience shows us that we can train our brain to react differently in such moments. Each time you stay calm and steady after intimacy, you strengthen the pathways of independence in your brain and weaken those of emotional need. But let's go deeper into something even more fascinating. Why is it that some men cannot forget a woman even when they try after being with her? The answer lies in what I call the mark of extraordinariness. When a woman shares intimacy while also protecting her mystery, her independence, and her sense of value, she leaves a very strong imprint on a man's mind. How does this happen? The male brain is wired to remember most clearly the experiences that connect physical pleasure with emotional challenge. If after sex you don't behave like most women, predictable, clingy, or needy, but instead keep that touch of mystery and independence, you stand out in his mind as unusual in the best way. In neuroscience, this is linked to what's called stronger memory consolidation. His brain labels the experience with you as rare and special, and his instinct is to want to repeat it. This is not manipulation. It is simply applied understanding of how love and memory work. Rosa, one of my clients who became very successful in love, once shared with me, "Doctor, I realized the secret is not to show him after sex how much I liked it, but to stay the same fascinating woman he first fell for, not someone who changes afterward." Rosa understood something powerful. Emotional consistency is magnetic. But let me warn you again, I am not talking about acting or playing a role. What I mean is genuine autonomy. The difference is huge. A woman who pretends plays it cool on the surface. A woman who is truly independent doesn't need to pretend because she already feels complete in herself. So how do you build this autonomy after intimacy? First, by strengthening your sense of value outside of the bedroom. If your worth depends on male approval, you will always react with insecurity after sex. Second, by creating a life so full and interesting that no man, no matter how wonderful, becomes your only source of happiness. And third, by learning to enjoy intimacy simply for the pleasure and connection it brings, not as a way to force love, promises, or reassurance. When you give yourself to someone out of genuine desire and joy, you give off an energy that men unconsciously feel. I often use this picture in my sessions. Imagine you are a fine restaurant. If after serving an excellent meal, you chase the guests down the street, offering discounts, begging them to come back, or asking if they really enjoyed it, what do you signal? That you are unsure of your own quality. But if, after delivering a wonderful experience, you simply remain the same confident, high-value place, the guest will return on their own. It works the same with intimacy. If after sex you remain the same grounded, captivating, and independent woman without asking for reassurance or changing who you are, he will come back not out of duty, but out of real desire. Now let's clear up something that causes confusion. The difference between being emotionally open and being needy. Many women who want to avoid looking needy swing too far in the other direction and act cold or distant. That is not the answer either. The balance is being present without attaching, available without looking desperate. What does this actually look like right after making love? You can be affectionate, you can touch him, talk if it flows naturally, but not because you fear losing him, not because you need to make sure he still cares. Your affection should come from inner abundance, not from fear of being left. I always repeat a phrase to my clients: the love you beg for is the love that loses its value. If your behavior after intimacy shouts, "Please don't stop loving me," you send the wrong signal. But if your attitude instead says, "That was beautiful to share, and I am still the same wonderful woman with or without you," then you inspire respect and a steady desire to stay. There is something very curious in male psychology. Men usually value more what they sense they could lose. I am not speaking about games, but about something real. If you show him that you have a rich life that stands on its own, if you show him that your happiness is not dependent on him, his instinct marks you as high value. But here comes an important paradox. Men also need to feel special to you, just not desperately needed. They need to feel you choose them, not that you can't live without them. This difference is subtle, but very powerful. Choosing comes from freedom and strength. Needing comes from emptiness and dependency. Let me tell you about Alejandra, who completely changed her romantic life once she grasped this. For years, men pulled away from her after intimacy. Then she shifted her approach. The next time she shared that closeness, she didn't cling to it, didn't ask for promises, didn't search for signs of the future. She simply enjoyed the moment and afterward returned to her normal life. Later, she told me, "Doctor, it was amazing. For the first time, a man actually wanted more closeness after sex instead of pulling away. That's when I saw that my desperate energy had been pushing them off all along." Alejandra had discovered the strength of true independence. But what exactly happens in a man's mind in the first 24 hours after intimacy? His brain begins something I like to call emotional filing. It places the experience into categories. Was it just physical? Was it something special? Did it feel authentic or empty? Did the woman stay true to herself, or did she change afterward? During this hidden sorting process, every sign of insecurity, every sudden shift in behavior, every search for reassurance is stored in his mind as a red flag. But if you keep your essence, your self-respect and your independence, his mind files the experience as something valuable and worth repeating. This filing does not happen in his conscious thoughts, but it absolutely guides how he treats you afterward. That is why what you do in those important hours after intimacy and how you act is so vital. I remember Monica, who came to my practice completely frustrated. Her relationships always began beautifully, but after sex, everything seemed to cool off. When we looked closely at her behavior after intimacy, we noticed she instantly turned into someone else. From independent to clingy, from confident to unsure, from interesting to predictable. I gave her a simple yet powerful exercise. After being close, ask yourself, am I still the woman he first fell for, or have I changed into someone else? This question helped her keep her true self even in moments of great vulnerability. And this is key to understand. Men do not handle intimacy the way women usually do. For many men, sex can feel very intense and physical without instantly becoming emotional. That does not mean they are without feelings. They just handle emotions differently and at a slower pace. In the first few hours after, many men are in what I call integration mode. Their brain is still processing the physical act. Their hormone levels are balancing again, and without even realizing it, they are also quietly evaluating the emotional meaning of what just happened. If they notice big changes in your behavior during this time, if they feel sex has changed you, or that you suddenly carry new expectations, their inner alarm system goes off, not always in a conscious way, but instinctively. And that is exactly why it's so important to know your value does not change after sex. If you were valuable before, you remain valuable afterward. Intimacy should never turn you into someone who needs to beg for approval. It should be another natural way of expressing your wholeness as a woman. Now, I will say something that may sound surprising, but it is deeply true. Men can become strongly drawn, even obsessed, with a woman who keeps challenging them emotionally even after intimacy. I am not saying to play games, but to remain the same complete and interesting woman you already were before he entered your life. Why does this happen? Because the male brain is wired to respect and desire what it cannot fully control. If after sex they feel they already have you, that there is nothing more to discover, that you are now predictable, their unconscious interest slowly fades. But if you keep your sense of mystery, your independence, and your own personal life, You stay like unexplored ground to him, something he feels he must win again and again. And this does not mean being cold or distant, but being truly self-sufficient. It means your joy, your projects, your friendships, and your dreams do not rest entirely on him. When a man realizes that you are whole even without him, but you still freely choose him, then a strong, lasting attraction is created. Dopamine, the brain chemical of pleasure and reward, is released much more powerfully with unexpected rewards than with guaranteed ones. If after intimacy you turn into a constant reward, always available, always needy, always looking for his approval, his dopamine response to you lowers over time. But if you keep a healthy level of unpredictability, live your own life, keep some secrets and projects, his brain will keep marking you as a high-value reward. Take a real example. Sophia used to cancel all her plans after intimacy, just waiting for the man to call her again. Almost always, the men lost interest afterward. When she changed her behavior and simply went back to her normal life after intimacy, her yoga, her friends, her work, men started looking for her more often. It feels like magic, doctor, she told me. Since I stopped cancelling my life for them, they now want to be part of my life. Sophia had uncovered a powerful truth. Men value what they